Live? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dinner Demos here at Jefferson Healthcare. My name's Chef Arran Stark, and tonight we're going to delve a little deeper into chicken. So, before we delve too deep, I got to talk about quinoa. And I know we're supposed to be talking about chicken, but I want to share with you a fun thing to do. And that is to cook quinoa. And today we're gonna do a rendition of Peruvian street food called chicharrón. Traditionally, that is pork rinds or fried pork, but we're gonna have a rendition done with chicken. But before we get going with the chicken, I want to talk about quinoa. Quinoa is second most nutritious thing a human can consume, more or less. If you're on a desert island, you just want to eat quinoa. Grows in the arid regions up in the high mountains of modern-day Peru and Bolivia. When the conquistadors came and saw what was being done with the quinoa, they outlawed it. They said, we don't want it. You can eat our wheat and stuff that we're bringing. And so quinoa went out of existence, more or less. And then in the 1960s, some researchers brought quinoa to Colorado and started growing it in the high arid regions of Colorado. But what we found are varieties that do well all over the country. So we have a local variety of quinoa that grows not too far from here over in Chimicum, which is kind of fun. But I like to show people how I cook quinoa. If you look at a box of quinoa, it says, well, you got to cook quinoa absorption method. And that's the same method by which you cook rice, which is, 1 knuckle of rice and 2 knuckles of water, bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, cover it up, and then in 20 minutes it's done. That's the absorption method. What I like to tell people is absorption method is good for rice, but for quinoa, naturally, quinoa has a bitter saponin that comes on the outside of it, and you have to wash the quinoa. But there's always a residual flavor in that quinoa that if you do cook it at absorption method, you kind of taste it. It's kind of like this bitterness. But if you cook quinoa pasta method or plunge method, and that is having a big pot of water, and you plunge the quinoa into it and cook it until it's done, and then you have the magic chinois to strain it through so it doesn't go down your drain, then you can come out with some really nice, you can control the al dente-ness of the quinoa if you cook it pasta method. So I've got a boiling pot of water here. I've got my chinois, and I've got my quinoa. This is a tri-colored, this is white, black, and red quinoa. We've had some conversations of do they all cook at the same rate? And I think they're pretty close. I would say in the perfect world, I'd probably cook the white separately from the red, separately from the black, but this is the way we got it. A beautiful tri-mix. So the first thing I want to do is I want to salt my water like the sea. So I'm going to add probably a tablespoon or 2 of salt to my boiling water. There's that. And then I'm going to plunge my quinoa into the water. Get it all in there, boiling water, and give it a little stir around. And we're just going to watch this and monitor it for that al dente-ness. While that's happening, I want to do a recipe. Now, this is a marinade for chicken. I've used the same marinade on beef, and it works just well. Kind of a fun exotic marinade for chicken. It starts out with a blender. This is the way I like to do it. So I'm just going to add a 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar. There's that. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of soy. Boom. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of water. A half. It makes it simple when you do it half a half. So there's that. Then I'm going to come and grab, I have a funky tablespoon here. I'm going to get 1 tablespoon of cumin and add it to my blender. I'm going to get 1 tablespoon of fresh garlic into there. And then I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. Now this is a toasted sesame oil in there like that. Okay. Very nice, very nice, very nice. I have 1 cup of fresh cilantro into my marinade. And then last but not least, I just want to get a little bit, a teaspoon of chili powder, chili flakes in there. Boom. So there's that. Okay. Now I'm going to just get a little cleaned up here. Like that. Okay. And then I just want to bring my marinade mixture to blend it all up. Start out slow. Just a nice mixture. Okay. Off of that. And I'm just going to save this for a little while later for the big surprise I got coming your way. So there's that. I'm finished with you. I'm just going to come and check my quinoa. And we're getting there. Boom, boom. Nice. Okay. So we talked about chicken last week, and we went through the butchering of a chicken. I think I'd like to revisit that just a little bit. Again, I like to start out with a whole chicken. When you buy the family packs of chicken thighs or chicken breasts, generally they're coming from several different birds, and at least if you get a whole chicken, you can look at the bird and say, well, this looks good. I don't see anything that's out of place. It looks fresh. It feels good. And then if you have a whole bird, you can always use the bones for stock. So it's kind of a cool thing. But I just want to go through that breaking down of a chicken real quick, because it's fun. So there's that. And here we go. My chicken on the table. So I rinsed my bird off before when I pulled it out of the package. This is Rosie's organic chicken. Again, I'm going to let the bird do all the work for me. And just where that knuckle meets the socket, there's a tendon that holds it together. If you run your knife right through that, you can pull each of these parts off, just like that. Again, so there goes the wings off. And if I just come right between the thigh and the breast here and just make a little incision and just run my thumbs down into there, I can feel where that hip socket is, and just pop that hip out of joint there, and I just come along here with my knife and just cut that leg and thigh off of there, like so. There's that. Bump, bump. Tonight's dish, I'm just going to use the chicken breast. So the way I take that off is I've got the sternum here, and you can see the line, and if I just put some back pressure on that meat and just run that knife straight down, the knife will land on either side of that sternum. So then I just very gently just start pulling that breast right off of there, all the way through, and again through that knuckle and that socket, just to pull that off. And then if I just come the other side, just take it nice and easy, shallow cuts, nothing that extra deep, and then just pull off that breast. And then here's the carcass so that I can make a nice stock out of. So it works out pretty well. Again, my chicken breast has the tender, which I can just pull out. And then I'm going to remove the shoulder and the arm there and just give myself boneless, skinless chicken breast for our little dish today. So there's that. Quinoa's happening. So most of this I'll just pop into a stock. We'll do something with the legs next week, leg and thighs. It's always fun playing with leg and thigh of chicken. We're kind of, we can only do so many things out here in the dining room just because we don't want to set off the smoke alarms. So sauteing is kind of out of the question. So there's my chicken breast. I just pop these down in here real quick. And what I want to do is I want to cut probably 1/4 inch slices out of my chicken. I don't want them too thick or too thin, about 1/4 inch. I'm just doing this on a bias cut and just going through this each of the chicken breasts like that. And boom, just to give myself some little strips of chicken. Very nice. And I want to keep them all uniform as much as I can, all the same size, because you'll find that one won't cook as fast as the other if they're all off size. So there's that. Cool. Now, with our marinade, since it's a wet marinade, we're going to have to take in consideration that this is the type of stuff we want to do beforehand, a couple of hours beforehand. And if I just grab all this, pop that away real quick, boom. And I just want to make sure I'm being super, super clean anytime I'm working with raw meats. So I have a sanitizing solution of a teaspoon of bleach and a gallon of cold water. And that gives me a nice sanitizing solution to work with. So we've got our chicken here, and we've got our marinade that we just blended up with our nice little recipe. And I'm just going to drench this chicken with my marinade. Now, in a perfect situation, I'm going to let this sit and marinate for a couple of 3 hours. And then, but I have to make sure that once I've marinated something, if you imagine this chicken is like a sponge. So it's sucking up all that marinade, and then we have to allow it time to actually dry out a little bit. So it sucks up the marinade, and then it releases the marinade when we let it dry, but it's leaving behind that flavor in that chicken. And this is particularly nice because it's garlicky, it's got a lot of cumin in it, kind of fun stuff. So I'm going to cover this up, put it in my refrigerator for 2 to 3 hours, pull it out, run it through a colander, let all that marinade go away, and then I'm going to lay it out on a sheet pan, maybe with some paper towels underneath it, and just let it dry out a little bit. So, well, I'll show you what it looks like. It's kind of fun. Well, once you get to that point, then we have beautiful marinated chicken. So that was probably about a 2-hour marinade. Feels kind of nice. I'm going to come over here, multitasking. I just want to check where my quinoa is. And remember I said al dente? It's kind of like pasta, is when you put pasta between your 2 front teeth to see if it's done. That if it gives you a little resistance, maybe it's not done all the way. I want to do the same thing with quinoa. And I'm just going to pop it and say, okay, it needs a little bit longer. I'm just going to get it go just a tad bit longer. And I want to get ready for this right here. But using this method to cook that quinoa means that I'll have all this fun quinoa to play with. So let's see what I can do here. Got that. I'm going to turn this off. I think we're done there. And then if I just take my pot of quinoa and run it through my fine chinois, which none of this quinoa will pass through, so it's pretty nice to have a chinois in your kitchen. If not, you can get like a sifter strainer to do it, but it works out pretty nice. Now, once I have this quinoa, I get as much of that water out as possible, and I'm just going to put it on a baking sheet pan with a little parchment paper like this. There's that. Very nice. And I just want to spread it out on my sheet pan like so. And then I want to put this in a slow oven. So we've hydrated the quinoa, we've cooked it, and now I just want to dry it out a little bit. So if I pop it into the oven, or underneath my counter here, and I pull it out, oh, I have a beautiful cooked quinoa that's been dried out. And this allows it to have a little crunchiness to it. It's pretty sweet, actually. So what I want to do now is get it all lined up so I can make this quinoa do something special. All right, so I'm going to put on, and I know it's not my place to really be the deep fry king, but it's one of those methods that I can do out here and won't set off any smoke alarms. So I'm going to deep fry chicken chicharron. It's kind of fun. We do this one on chicken finger night with the kids, and it is such a nice way to present chicken for kids. So there's that. Just get the rest of that in there as my breading, but it's not breading, it's quinoa-ing, because it's kind of fun. And there's that. Give it a nice wipe down yet again. Boom. So any questions so far? We've been doing a lot of stuff.
Well, Deja was just commenting that your chicken is always so moist, and thinking that the marinade is probably the reason for that.
So this is a really special marinade. It is really flavor forward in the fact that this chicken dish, you don't really need to have a dipping sauce because the marinade is so pronounced in it. Traditionally, we'd make like a little remoulade-based sauce with chili in it, or you can use actually like an herb salsa. You know, what do we call that herb salsa? No, kind of like a pesto, but I'm trying to think of the word. Anyway, it's kind of fun. So now my brain's getting ahead of me. All right, so the breading process, we're going to start out with a little bit of flour. And yes, there are gluten-free renditions to this. In fact, if we just swap this flour up for maybe a sorghum flour or a rice flour, it would be gluten-free. And the soy that we use is a wheat-free soy. So it works out kind of nice like that. And I just want to make a little bit of egg wash right here. So just going to crack some eggs, maybe 2 or 3, and just those right onto the floor there. Boom. There's that. And this is such a nice dish. Okay, there's that. If I just bring my little whisk here and whisk my eggs, I just want that to be a solid mixture, solid yellow mixture. No clear clumps in it. Just whisk it up nicely. And then I can just, once I get those eggs whisked up nice enough, I'll turn it into an egg wash. And just by adding maybe a teaspoon or so of water to it, and that makes it nice. Some people prefer to put milk or something like that into their egg wash, but I like a little bit of water. Okay, there's that. So I have my egg, my flour, and my quinoa. And I just want to check to see where we are on the temperature of this. So the quinoa, when I cooked it in the boiling water, I salted that water. So when you taste this quinoa, it does have a saltiness to it because that quinoa is sucking up some of that salty water as well. So it's kind of a neat thing. But there's so much, the soy we use is the sodium, is the salt content. All the garlic and the cumin just add, it's just a power punch to the cheeks. It's really fun. I want to make sure I get this oil to about 350 degrees for a nice deep fry. And let's see where we are. This induction burner is a fast way to get oil happening. Let me see. We got a little while to go. See, maybe should have brought out a different burner. So any questions? No? No questions? No? All right, let's start breading our chicken, shall we? Keep that going. Boom, boom. And I just want to glove up. So the trick to breading is being a little ambidextrous with two hands. My first hand is going to be the flour and the egg, and my second hand is going to be the egg to the quinoa. So let's see if we can pull this off. So a little flour, I'm just going to dust each piece of chicken very lightly, and then try and bounce some of that excess flour off of there. And again, there's my left hand in the egg wash, making sure there's no dry patches, and then into my quinoa. And then I'll just dust that around in my quinoa, get a nice little coating there, and pop that out. Oh, you're going to love this. This is such a fun dish to do. There's that. You're going to like this, I promise. It's such a crowd pleaser. So when I was at the Peruvian restaurant in Portland, this was kind of an appetizer, the chicken chicharron. And we served it with like a chimichurri. It was really kind of a nice thing. But the incredible thing about this, or using quinoa as a breading, is that bread will never give you that satisfying crunch that quinoa does. And so it's a super beautiful experience if you're looking for that texture of crunchiness. That's why we like using it in fish cookery. We like to coat fish with quinoa because fish has a hard time. It's hard to get texture out of fish, certainly a crunchy texture. And a fish sandwich is one thing with the breading, but you bread a piece of fish with quinoa and put that in a sandwich, it's something truly beautiful. And you can do hybrid models of bread and quinoa, which I've seen before, which is kind of the panko and some quinoa. But it's super fun dish. All right, so we're getting somewhere here. And I've had a fun one where we've actually chunked up little pieces of salmon, like 1-inch cubes of salmon, and done the same thing and deep fried little 1-inch cubes of salmon. And that is such a great experience. When you make fish cakes with salmon, you can use this in lieu of some of that panko breadcrumbing in your fish cakes. So it's really kind of a nice thing. All right, I'm going to check my temperature on my oil and see if we're approaching 350, because that's what we're looking for. Of course, everybody be super careful when you're deep frying on an open stove. When we deep fry at home, we've got a little crab pot burner in the backyard that we light up and do all that stuff outside. All that ambient oil floating around is not that fun for cleaning. But whenever I'm deep frying, I'm definitely making sure that I've got everybody out of the way because it likes to spit oil everywhere, that's for sure. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. And then I have this little tray here, and I've just lined up some paper towels onto the tray, much in the same way as when you cook and bake and you pull it out of the skillet and pop it on some paper towels just to sop off some of the fat on it. Let's see where we are.
What about an air fryer? Have you ever tried an air fryer?
You know, I have never tried an air fryer, but I'm kind of an old school. But I'm sure that I would learn a lot if I got a hold of an air fryer. Same thing with what's the Simple Pot, the rice. Yeah, you can't make that work. Instapot. I don't know. I just sort of like I'm pots and pan and open flame for the most part. Air fryer. Are you saying that I should buy an air fryer and try it out? Okay. I've seen where you can buy chicken nuggets that are in the shape of animals and fry them in an air fryer.
Dino nuggets, yes. So, you just had a question, could you bake or broil these instead of frying?
Ah, there's a beautiful question. So you can. If we were to just pop these into a really strong oven, so like a 375, 400 degree oven, it would really do the trick. And you could pop, I just want an air fryer right here, right now, just to do it.
Cherish, I think you could use an air fryer if you have an air fryer.
You can also pan fry, where you have less oil. You're not deep frying, you're pan frying, but it takes a little bit of, you know, flipping it around and stuff. But I think I'm going to generate more smoke with that in here if I do that. Oh, come on, oil. Why don't you get so hot? I need my pro kitchen. Okay. So this is taking longer than I thought it would. What can we do for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you think? Tap dance. Let's see. I was trying to think of other things. So next week we're going to work with a leg and thigh of chicken. And this is like a fun little thing. Let's see. Other things for this quinoa. What can we do?
So if you like quinoa so much, it's your magical food, what are other ways you serve it to your family?
So other ways so I've got this quinoa. If I've cooked this quinoa, now this has been tarnished with raw chicken, so I certainly wouldn't do it here. But if you've got quinoa that you haven't even toasted off, if you just got cooked quinoa, more of this stuff right here, this might be kind of fun. So here I've just got, it's just been cooked. I just cooked it pasta method. But if you think, you take a portion of this and toast it off for your breading. But what else could you do with this? It's beautiful in scrambled eggs. Yeah. In the morning, make your scrambled eggs while they're still kind of soft. Just add some of this cooked quinoa to them. And you're eating the second most nutritious thing in your morning eggs. I've seen it where people actually make oatmeal and then put cooked quinoa into it. So again, you're fortifying already some good stuff with second most nutritious thing you can consume. My favorite thing to really do with quinoa is to make tabbouleh-ish kind of salads with it. So if I treat this almost like a pasta and a pasta salad, and add a vinaigrette to it, add aromatic vegetables to it, then I've got this beautiful quinoa salad. I mean, aromatic vegetables, you can julienne kale, you can put tomatoes and peppers, garbanzo beans, and you add a vinaigrette to it, and the longer it sits, like give it a day or two. The second day, it's just beautiful tasting. As far as other ideas, we've taken winter squash, peeled winter squash, chunks of it, and actually breaded that and fried that. Nice pieces of quinoa encrusted squash on the vegetarian side of things. So we have risotto, which is arborio rice, and you cook it and you stir it and you're adding stock to it, and it cooks and makes this beautiful creamy rice risotto. We have something we call quinoto, which is more of a quinoa style of risotto, where you're actually mounting it with cream and letting that cream reduce down with aromatic vegetables and white wine. So that's a fun dish with lots of mushrooms. Hey, Leslie, we're waiting for the oil to get hot.
Deja would like to know what your favorite recipe for marinating chicken.
My favorite recipe for marinating chicken?
I think so.
So we love when you hit the herb garden, you've got oregano and marjoram and the parsleys and you've got onions and you've got all the citrus fruit. We just like take chicken, just cutting up oranges and lemons and that citrusy, nice herbed chicken that's got that citrus to it. And if you think about the marinade that I used, I put red wine vinegar in it. That was my acidity to my marinade. And so that was one of my favorite, like a citrus, herb intense citrus marinade. But I had to say, this marinade that I shared with you is like a top secret. Like, I always go to this one. Now everybody knows my secret.
Yeah, I put it on my interweb.
Interweb.
Cherish said you could also stuff bell pepper with quinoa.
That was, you know, when you get into like so we'd done the breakfast, done the lunch, in the dinner time, you can take this cooked quinoa. Once you've got that in your refrigerator, you can stuff peppers with it. You can stuff mushrooms with it. You can do all these other things with it, which is pretty neat. And in fact, when we did the potatoes, we actually made those potato croquettes and crusted them with quinoa. Again, I like just taking a piece of salmon, searing it off, browning it off on both sides, pulling it off the heat, making a remoulade, which is like a mayonnaise-based sauce, and smearing it over like the presentation side of the fish, and then hit it with some of this crispy quinoa, and then finish that whole thing off in the oven. And you take it to like, you cook it all the way, pull it out, and it's giving texture. So it's texture, crunchy texture, beautiful piece of salmon with a built-in sauce. And you know, as far as like hospital food is concerned, we rely heavily on that method of cooking fish. It keeps fish nice and moist and has this beautiful crunch to it. I did a video for the International Quinoa Symposium, and I think that's on YouTube, where I really get into cooking quinoa. Not far from here, Organic Seed Alliance does trials for quinoa. And as I'm saying, it started in Peru, Bolivia, made its way to the United States, and now the demand for quinoa has been so high that seed companies and seed organizations, they work with it and they do trials, breeding trials with quinoa, and find out particular breeds that do well in different climates. So we have a few that grow really well here in Chimacum Valley and out in Quilcene and here in Port Townsend. So much that I'm sure next year I'm going to have a big row of quinoa in my front yard. That's how excited I am about it. So, yeah, let's see where we are. I've got just a digital stem thermometer, and we're getting there. I know it's taking too long. It's supposed to be hot. So I'm right at about 300. So we got 50 more degrees to go. Just for you, Miss Shaley. Yeah. Any more questions? Quinoa Symposium. It was, if you look up International Quinoa Symposium, it should give it to you. Or quinoa cookery. Yeah, you find it? Nice. You gonna link it? Awesome. What's that? Oh, maybe you have to type in my name. So yeah, we don't really have a deep fryer here at the hospital because we don't generally do a lot of deep frying. We have on occasion done like a crispy fried fish sandwich that one of our culinarians in the back, Chris Harris, brought to us, and it's kind of fun. Just a southern style crispy fish sandwich, but quinoa instead of panko is the way to go. Promise you that. All right. Was it there? Who did? Sweet. Let's see where we are. We're getting there. We're so close. Boom, boom. Yeah. Okay, we're moments away, kids. Moments away. Okay. So the tools that I'm going to really need to do a successful deep fry are going to be a Fedora spoon, an oil spoon like this, or you use a slotted spoon just to plunge them in, pull them out, pop them down. Want to make sure they're fully cooked. Keeping in mind when we're doing a stovetop, you have to monitor the temperature of the oil. Most traditional deep fryers will automatically do that with a thermostat, but keep this in mind: when we add cold chicken to a hot oil, it's going to bring everything right down. So in between your fries, you have to let that oil heat back up again. So it's kind of a neat one. And all this time for such a sassy dish, you're going to love it. Leslie, do you eat chicken?
I do.
Yeah, cool. I can't wait.
What about the links to the research on the best quinoa to grow in Chisholm area?
Ooh, so that you'd probably have to go and data through, it was WSU would probably have all that information. Washington State University, just here around here. Because I know that it was something, so there's Murphy, Kevin Murphy is out in Mount Vernon at their grain lab. And he's been the one that's spearheading most of that work as far as quinoa breeding. And so Finn River Farm, I think there were probably, I don't know, 100 varieties out there. See that picture on there? That's me walking through 100 varieties of quinoa. Pretty cool, huh? Soup's cool. All right. All this for nothing. All right. Oh my goodness. So when I put the chicken into this oil, I have to be really careful that if I just throw it in, it splash back and hit your arm. So you have to be really careful about it. And certainly you can put it on this and just dip it in, which is probably the smartest way to do it. But I like to be a little cavalier, so I'm gonna plunge mine in. Let's see where we are. Let's see where we are. I think we're there. 350 degrees is what we're looking for, kids. All right. So the biggest hazard when you're deep frying, especially over an open stove, is that when you plunge your meat in, this is cold and wet, and it hits the oil, and a lot of times that oil want to boil over, and when that oil boils over onto your flame, that's when fires start. So I just want to take it really easy, just do a couple at a time. So there's one, and there's two, and there's three. Ooh. Now I got to be careful. If I go in there and start messing with it, I'm gonna mess up my breading. So when I do that, I have to be, instead of touching it, just make swirls around in your oil. And we're just gonna watch for that to start floating on top. And then I'm gonna take an internal temperature of that chicken, make sure it's 165 or above. And then we're gonna lay it down on Miss Yaley. Yeah, you want some too? It's super good. What is that? Wow. Meat something. Kind of fun. So I'm always thinking of fun things to do to get kids to eat food that they generally don't want to eat. This is definitely one. It's like, ooh, let's make chicken fingers tonight. But you can source the chicken organic, and the quinoa is super good for them. And then just serve it up with a nice, healthy portion of broccoli. Yeah? What's that? Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness, ladies. What is it? Sweet. You know, there's a chicken soup that they float quinoa into as well. It's kind of fun. Just imagine chicken noodle soup, but instead of noodles, it's got quinoa and fresh cilantro in it. Super nice. I love the quinoa. Oh, and here we are deep frying. Until it's done. We're going to take an internal temperature of it with our thermometer. So I'm just going to pull a piece out while that's going there, and I'm just going to use my internal temperature to dictate, see if it's done or not. And we are 168 degrees. I'll push it down into it a little bit more, and that's the beauty in having this chicken so thin, is that it's going to cook relatively quickly. So if you had a big honking piece of chicken in there, it would take a while to get going. But there's that. Let me see how much that dropped my temperature down. So I got a question for you out there. So I pulled this out of the deep fryer, right, at 350 degrees, and it's still hot. Do you think it's still cooking? Yeah, right? The internal temperature, the temperature of that chicken, since it's got that residual heat, it carryover cooks. So it's kind of a fun thing. All right, here we go, more. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. And then last piece, boom. Making sure it doesn't boil over. That would be the worst. Oh, yeah. All right. Another thing that you can do is just grab a little knife. And I want to take the first taste. Oh, yeah. You can tell it's cooked. Nice. It's pretty hot. Oh, hot. Oh, yeah. I just want to go home and have like chicken nuggets for dinner all night long with this. Oh, this is really good. You ready for it? All right. I got one. So, chicharron a la chicken. I'll make it look fancy for you. So again, a nice chimichurri. Aww. Aww. The thing is that it's just going to leave, you're going to have black quinoa on your teeth.
It's okay, I'm wearing a mask.
You're wearing a mask. I get that. Oh, it's so good. Uh-huh. I didn't want one. All right, I got some taste testers here. We're gonna get some feedback. Again, that marinade, let it sizzle in for a good 3 hours, and then you really get it. Oh, I gotta, oh! It's crunchy, right? So it's a piece of chicken. It's your chicken finger, chicken nugget, but on super crunch. And I love showing people quinoa. It is such a neat, versatile plant grain that not a lot of people know about. They think it is exotic or health food, grade food, but the marinade is pretty spectacular, especially with the garlic and the chili flakes and all that. Let me know if you have any questions next week. I think we're going to do something utilizing the chicken leg and thigh. And I'm going to get pretty intense. I think we're going to make a mousseline and actually stuff a leg and thigh. Does that sound good? So it's something we alluded to last week, but we'll do it. So if there's no more questions, I think I'm going to have a chicken finger party. Is that it? No one else? All right. Thanks, everybody. Be safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Get the vote out. All those good things.
Thanks, Doc.
All right. Cool. Was that all right? Huh?